Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. My name is Dustin Cormier, and welcome to another episode of How to Rock Astrology. Today, we are going to be continuing in our series, unfurling the nature of the moon in Scorpio. In particular, we're going to be talking about the other dimension of the feminine aspect of ourselves, which is Venus. Here today, we're talking about what it's like when a person has the moon in Scorpio and Venus in the sign of Taurus. Now, there's lots to be kind of conveyed here. If you want to get a little bit of an idea of the psyche of the moon in Scorpio, I recommend you check out my first video that I put out in this series. It's the moon in Scorpio. I did an hour just talking about the nature of the Scorpio moon person. Now, today we're going to be talking about how that Scorpio moon is going to be interacting with Venus in the sign of Taurus. Really, right off the offset, the positive thing about this combination is that while the moon is not in its best place, it's debilitated in Scorpio, Venus is at least in Taurus, and Venus is in its own sign here. So there are significations, at least by sign, that Venus is in its own dignity, and it's in the sphere of doing what Venus should be doing. It's really also in the sphere that the moon is doing what the moon should be doing, because Taurus is the exalted place of the moon. But the moon here is not inclined or wired to do what the moon is supposed to be doing. The moon is exalted in Taurus, and when it's exalted in Taurus, well, what is the moon? The moon is our ability to adapt in the world. When you think about it, the moon revolves around Earth, and Earth is our experience of our incarnated emotional reality. Not just what makes us feel good, but also just what we're used to. Even the bad aspects of our emotional traumas and patterns is conveyed by the moon. And we have to channel that in a way. Ultimately, when the moon is at its best, it uses the energy of the people and the universe around it so that it does not have to do it all itself. That's the moon in Taurus. Look at that. There's abundance. There's an abundance of people around me because I perpetuate a mutual desire to be in the inspiration and in the watery feeling of helping and being helped. That's when the moon is in Taurus. When the moon is in Scorpio, it's not exactly wired to do the Taurus thing. When the moon is in Scorpio, it's a much more willful way, a controlled way of dealing with your emotional peaks and valleys and ups and downs and passions and desires and the life that you want to live outside of your ambitions and your job. That's what the moon really is. Not who you are from 9 to 5, but really it's who you are once you get home. Unfortunately, the moon in Scorpio often tries to have a bit of the experience of what it wants to have at home at work. It's an ambitious thing, and it wants to be comfortable at what it does at work. And it will often stick to jobs where it can kind of be itself and be comfortable at work and to be its ambitious self, to rev itself up, and to be essentially isolated and individual in its ability to gather strength and apply strength to the ambitions and goals and to make the impressions on people in order to give it the self-esteem that it needs to convey what the sun is trying to do. The earth is what earth is. The moon is the first glimmer of light from earth, and the light is the beauty of the soul in one, which is the soul in all. It's the sun. The sun powers the plants and everything good on earth. It's the vitality and energy that we all seek to imbibe and to be. The moon is the closest thing to earth, which means that the moon at its best is the first thing that we grasp in order to be connected to the energy of the world around us and outside of us. When the moon is in Scorpio, it finds that it has a difficult time being able to grasp what it needs. And so really, what ends up happening typically is that the moon says, I don't want it. I don't need it from the outside world because I can convey it myself through familiar patterns, through familiar mental conditions and tendencies. And you hug that rail, and essentially what it means is that you get these big peaks and then these big valleys that you can't control, because what you end up doing is you think that you're willfully controlling your emotional moods and you're in control of your universe because you think that you know how the peaks and valleys are going to go. But ultimately, the peaks and valleys for you are going to be much more exaggerated than they are for someone who has the moon in Taurus. Because the moon in Taurus doesn't hold on to its need to stick to this familiar pattern. It really looks for the nutriment and support of the universe through other people around it and outside of it. That's where the moon is supposed to do and how it's supposed to convey its energy. And when you think about it, the moon in Scorpio is not all terribly bad, because you could still, the moon is also strong when it's close to the full moon. By being close to being opposite the sun. The best place is the 5th and 6th house from the sun. But even the 8th and 9th from the sun is still close to the full moon. But you also want the moon to be waxing, meaning being between the 1st and 6th house from the sun. Then it's waxing, then it's building. And this is a moon that can also positively reach out to people and get its needs met from others, even though it's still going to be stuck to its individuated patterns. It can kind of let go of them a little bit to meet people in the middle. When somebody has the moon balsamic and it's coming towards the new moon, when it's waning, or when it's closer to the new moon, then the vibe tends to stick to even more to the archetype of moon in Scorpio, which is doing it all myself, getting away from people, and even enjoying being pessimistic and sarcastic and kind of cynical, even to other people. They tend to enjoy people who can be self-denigrating in this way. But even, not to say you would enjoy it, but you could instinctively seek. There's a pressure that's off you when you don't have to be a healthy moon, and when nobody leans on you for having a healthy moon experience, a healthy psychological balance and equilibrium. People with a really bad moon tend to seek others who also kind of have lack of psychological, emotional equilibrium, because then the pressure's off. Now we're both in each other's sphere or of worthiness, which isn't the best consciousness, really. So whether your moon, it's in Scorpio here, as we know, but if it's well placed, if it has, aspects from its friends, the sun, as well as Jupiter, if it has, Jupiter's not a friend, but Jupiter's the great benefic. And so anything trying to Jupiter gains wisdom of what the needs actually are. But really, the moon being trying to Mercury, if Mercury is an aspect to the moon somehow, this will give the moon the ability to at least grasp what its needs legitimately are, communicate them to himself. But if the moon has none of these aspects, if it's close to the new moon, and if it's waning, and all these things, and there seems to be no help for your moon, consider that astrology is not as fatalistic as people make it out to be. This is an astral sphere, and this is a mental conditioning habit pattern that you have been born in this life to experience. And if you apply yoga, if you apply meditation, if you see your psyche as the happenstance of karma, don't take it personally. Don't feel like this is what I am because I'm a piece of shit and this is what it is because this is all I've ever known. If you mentally meditate, learn to detach from the samskaras of your previous action, you can apply a loving consciousness to get past the worst aspects of Scorpio moon and of this, all the other malefic aspects of the moon if you've got it there. Ultimately, my best advice is I recommend people consider of the yamas and niyamas. I've come to have an understanding where the second yamas and niyamas, that's santosha, which is actively giving yourself what you need for enjoyment, giving yourself a break, drinking the water of ease in life and making that a habit, as well as satya, which is being emotionally honest to yourself. And then use santosha to apply what you see with satya, with your emotional honesty with yourself. When you can do these things, accept that everybody has vulnerable times where they would be well served to crack beyond the shell of their familiar mental habits and tendencies. If you can accept this and accept that divine intelligence inside of all of us wants us to be love, wants us to be what it is, which is pure love, then it's silly and unintelligent to hold on to anything that's not that. So, don't let your astrology put you into any shell, because will and divine intelligence are stronger than the astral spheres that we move through. In any case, with this combination, we have the Scorpio moon. We know that the Scorpio moon is not exactly geared to jive to what Taurus is really putting down. Now, one of the reasons that this is a difficult combination, again, it's saved a little bit because Venus is in Taurus doing what Venus ought to be doing, which is when you're in relationships with people, you like to build sort of like soul connections and even to be sort of like a quality of love person rather than a quantity of love person. Unfortunately, the Scorpio moon here is probably, especially at the first part of life, going to starve that Venus. And this is a pattern that you've got to check with yourself and really understand. What we're talking about here is the fact that the moon in Scorpio is what it is, and Venus is opposite the moon here. And this is probably the heaviest aspect that Venus can give to the moon, aside from the Venus. Really the toughest aspect for Scorpio moon is if Venus is in Cancer, in the 9th sign from the moon, because then Venus is giving its full aspect to the moon. But here, this opposition aspect, the moon opposite Venus, is just as bad, really. Although, again, Venus is worse by being in Cancer. So at least Venus is in Taurus here, and Venus understands and enjoys having a proper relationship, having the semblances of a relationship that is deeper than surface deep. And Venus, through this, can gain the water of compassionate sharing of self, so that the partner also compassionately shares themselves with you, so that you don't feel like you're carrying the world on your shoulders. This is what the moon in Scorpio ends up doing, is they feel like they don't need anyone's help. I can do it myself. I want to be vital without anybody being in the picture. And you're the type of person who probably displays a desire to be around the arm of somebody who's meaningful and valuable and worthwhile. And this will get you there. The Venus in Taurus will get you there. But, especially if that Venus has no help and that moon has no help, then the moon is going to starve that Venus, and you're going to feel lacking for this important thing that the Venus in Taurus wants. Especially because it's an opposition, it would be a difficult energy, because your emotional nature is not wired to do what your Venus is actually putting out there. And so you'll be someone who kind of looks for a deeper soul bond with people, but you never actually let anybody in, because the moon in Scorpio wants to be kind of solo. Really wants the moon in Scorpio has an image of the perfect lover, their perfect soulmate, and the Venus in Taurus is that too, in a way. But it's okay that Venus in Taurus does this, because usually what would happen if the moon wasn't in this place? Then Venus in Taurus accepts that it wants to have a quality lover and to not have many frilly lovers, but to kind of really jive with someone who has shared values, shared tastes, same taste of music, same taste of going out to the movies and being socially with a bunch of people, ultimately having someone around their arm and being noticed for the juicy connection between you and your partner. The thing is that usually those juicy connections don't need to be displayed like an entertaining sort of way. I often say a beautiful bird doesn't need to boast. You might feel, because of your Scorpio moon, you might feel insecure. You might feel like, since you know that you've developed familiar grooves and habit patterns for making yourself happy, and you don't let your lover into your actual personal emotional life, you just wanted to put them around your arm, maybe get married to them, and then get married to them for some kind of materialistic reason, or because they're emotionally functional with the fact that you are emotionally dysfunctional. They can be functional with your dysfunction, and you attach to them because of that, not because they actually might have soul qualities that you could see yourself growing and learning and dissolving what you are in order to mesh with them now and later on in life as a soulmate coupling. Instead, you just grabbed for someone who's, again, can make you feel like you two have got a juicy energy together, even an erotic libidinal one. And you can walk around town and show people with the moon in Scorpio way. It's almost like your Venus and Taurus lover allows you to tell people, look at the soul bond and connection that I've garnered with this person. And you might feel inclined to kind of parade it around and to show people that you have this. And the more you have to show it off, the more you feel like it's an attachment of the external mental condition or the condition of being with the person, not actually loving the person, the more that the gap kind of grows. The thing is that at least by the Venus being in Taurus, there is a saving grace here a little bit. If your Venus is hit by other things, if it's conjunct Saturn and it's starved by Saturn by being in the same sign as Saturn, or if it is with if it's with the Sun, if it's conjunct the Sun, then this would damage the Venus as well. If there is lacking things, then even though the Venus is in Taurus, you might not be able to use really, you won't give the time to actually dedicate to loving and doing what the moon is supposed to be getting from that Venus. The Venus will essentially be a thing that you have as a trophy, which you probably feel ironically instigated and kind of frustrated with at some level. Although the moon, what we say when we have the moon opposite Venus is that the Western understands at least that Venus is a benefic and Venus does give to the moon. So this is a person whose Venus is opposite the moon, and this is good for the moon because it teaches the moon how to love itself. And you can learn probably how to be with friends and be with many people who teach you to enjoy your life in your own world. But how much you enjoy your life is probably going to come at the expense of what you can offer to a partner. You have a deep sensual, erotic nature, likely, that you have to probably feel like you want to perform for people in order to get your needs met. You have a hot, lusty, libidinal energy, and part of you, the Venus in you, is thinking that you're sharing it with the other person in order to help them enjoy themselves. And really, you might actually, you might say to yourself that you want to get them off. You want to be the hot person that makes them have pleasure. And superficially, at some level, you're telling yourself that you're doing this for them. But ask yourself very deeply, are you more excited about the fact that you are a capable lover? Or are you more excited about the fact that you have sacrificed yourself for something that is greater than your ephemeral pleasure? And the pleasure that you give to them is a wonderful side product of a soul sacrifice that you've made with that person, and for the sharing of actual life with this person, where you accept them for their ugly moods and they accept you for your ugly moods. Because the Venus in Taurus here wants to bond and enjoy the positive elements of the shared dynamic. But if the moon is really not positioned in the right way, if it doesn't know how to love for deeper reasons than just ephemeral personality harmony, then what will happen is you will want to connect with the person for yourself. You're using them to get what the ephemeral image of love is. And that's giving you a little bit of water, because the Svadhisthana shares the space. It's the second chakra, the water chakra. The moon and Venus share that tattva. And the water chakra is supposed to douse the ambitions of the Manipura, the fire chakra. It's supposed to douse it so that we don't need to go and do a million things in order to conquer the world all the time, because that would get boring and kind of tough. Even if you are somebody with a lot of Mars energy, and you kind of are by having the moon in Scorpio, there's a lot of ambition there. You're going to burn yourself out. You're going to get kidney failure trying to do it all yourself without the help of the other people around you. So this is what tends to happen here, is that you can burn yourself out this way if you don't actually meet the person at a place of true compassionate love. And the Venus in Taurus has the ability to spark this for you. What I often say is that Venus and the moon, again, they share the energy field of the Svadhisthana chakra, the second chakra. And if the moon is debilitated, like it is in this situation, then you got to lean on Venus in order to have experiences where you have a reason to share in the sharing of genuine compassion and love. And with this combination, both of them are having a tough time. The moon is eating the Venus here. So that what happens is that you basically find some image or some projection that will attract a partner to you for the reasons of your needs. You know that the moon is the queen, and it is the support of the sun, of your ambition that you are trying to do. And the sun is wrapped up with Mars. So you're an ambitious person who wants to do great things in life. And the moon energy is this frustrating thing that you roll your eyes about. Oh my God, why am I getting depressed again? Why am I getting depressed again? It sucks so bad that I just keep getting depressed and I can't do the things I want to do in life. So maybe I'll find somebody who will just help cheer me up, who will get my depression out of the way so I can finally get it out of the way and continue doing the ambitious things that I want to do. And what happens is that you're still essentially not getting the actual water. What you're doing is that you've taken on something that you have to entertain and learn mentally their emotional patterns as best and as close you can, to throw them a bone once in a while by having sex with them, going out on a date with them, spending money on them, so that they will so that you don't have to deal with them anymore. It's like a classic husband who's like, oh God, my wife is just keeps bothering me to actually spend time with me, and it's just like, oh, it's just the annoying thing that I have to deal with. Really, it's not them that you're dealing with. It's the moon queen nature inside yourself that you're saying, oh my God, why does this keep coming up to me? I just want to be alone in the world and to go through my predictive emotional patterns that I've always gone through. My wife, take her, please. That whole thing. So what ought to be happening here is that your moon in Venus in Taurus, if it's properly placed, or even if it's not, if you really find that you want to upend the emotional struggles that you are experiencing in this incarnation through these things, what you have to start doing is meditating and start really thinking about, what is my purpose in life? In the sun sense, you've probably got that figured out, but also now you got to think in the moon sense. What is the life that I want to live after I'm done my work? What is the actual experience of my earth life? Not what I do, but what I am. And who do I want around me to actually sustain and fulfill me, and to make me feel like I have not just self-esteem, but also to feel like I'm fitting on planet Earth. Like I'm a part of the great human consensus of people who are all having fun and having a good time. And this is something, by meditating, by tuning into this soul truth, you can let go of your addiction to trying to have someone on your arm who will kind of have the superficial reality of being someone who can at least help you modulate your still very fixed emotional energy. And in order to do that, you've got to actually sacrifice to love somebody for deeper values than just joy and thrills and passion. And even for people who share, again, the same taste of music and all these sorts of things, like those are all Venus Taurus things, which are okay, but even that can kind of blindsight you from being with someone and feeling with someone who has a purpose that's shared with you. Because it doesn't necessarily need to be a Venus and Moon thing. You can fall in love with someone for their Jupiter or their sun or whatever. But if you do that, then you've got to work out this water situation where you are going on a date with them and they say, you know, like, honey, I want to take you out and I want to watch a movie that you like. And you say, oh, wow, nice. Okay, let's do it. And so you watch a movie that you like. The next turn, your Venus in Taurus wants to reciprocate that because your Venus can do that. And if your Venus is not well placed by all other regards, then it's going to have a hard time learning the lesson of the opportunity that's being presented to you in these moments. Because essentially what you could do with it is that the person gives you some water and you don't just drink it and make it disappear. What you do is you share it so that 1 + 1 = 3. Their water plus your water equals the tantra of inspiration, birthing you in the universe, having your back. So what you do is you say, okay, if you're going to, next time we go out, we're going to watch a movie that you want. And what this means is that you have to actually think about what that person would like. And you have to put energy into it and not just feel good about having them on your arm and lockstep doing these sorts of things. You have to constantly be of Venus and start asking yourself, what can I do in a consistent, patterned way where I'm constantly showing a gesture to this person? And it might not come from within you because you've not been geared that way in this incarnation. But you have to understand that it's that lack of true water that is making you feel so dry in your ambition. And it's that lack of water that's making you not think about how you can pleasure your partner and bring them a gift, bring them something that they wouldn't expect, to genuinely show them that you actually love and care about them. Instigate this. Because it feels like probably a task for you energetically, something that's not a natural thing on your mind. You probably want to just go and work 10 hours at a job that you hate in order to come back and say, hey, baby, I just worked 10 hours at a job that I hate just so I can bring you home the bacon. So why don't you pull off my pants and make yourself useful? Like that kind of energy is really like very much this sort of combination, especially because the Venus in Taurus is sensual and kinky in this way. And if that's a kink for you and your partner, rock and roll. But don't lean on anything too hard that is at the expense of your partner's dignity and self-respect and shared sense of validity in the relationship. It might be a kink for you guys at first, but it cannot last. It will always lead to some kind of tension and frustration. something to think about. Now, I hope this has been clear. Ultimately, after explaining my sort of dimension of this sign combination, now what I want to do is we're going to read a little bit from Erotic Astrology by Phyllis Vega. Just talking a sort of lighter-hearted way about what it's like when we have the moon in Scorpio and Venus in Taurus. What we read is, in intimate relationships, you're sexy and sensual, but also demanding. At your best, you're caring, generous, and totally devoted to your beloved. But living with you can be extremely difficult. It's like the Venus in Taurus expects harmony and wants harmony, but it knows that it's missing out on that because of its own moods. And what happens is that you probably attract partners who expect a mutual equilibrium of joy and of helping and of service and of caring and of devotion. And you want your partner to give you that, and you also want to give that. But what happens is that you find yourself questioning, why am I devoted to this person? What have they done for me that gives me goodness and pleasure and ease in my life and harmony? Especially because they'll have moods. If they're in a mood for a while and you can't help them out, it's going to be harder for you to be devoted to them, because the two of you operate almost as if you want that shared soul sensual closeness. And living with you can be difficult because your emotional patterns cause you to want to go away from them and to be by yourself, to go and listen to music or watch movies. You'll sneak off to a movie theater on Wednesday night, and your partner will just be like there, and you're like, yeah, I'm just going to go do some business things, and you'll go off and sneak off to watch a movie just to get away from them. And then when you come home to them, it'll be much fresher. And this could actually not be a bad thing. This could be a good way for you to do things. But ultimately, the better thing would be for you to just buck up and share those moments where you're in your moods with the partner and learn to accept that the two of you, I mean, it's still good to have independence outside the relationship, especially for you as a Scorpio moon person. This is a balance that you're going to need to find, because this balance is reclusive for you because you have these emotional moods where you want to be by yourself. And you got to do that, but don't do it so much that it alienates your partner and causes frustration when you live together, because what you put out there as the attractive quality that you want is a partner who's close to you. Venus and Taurus, kind of like spending time together for the most part throughout your lives. That's the energy that you attract. And you just got to hope and accept that, you aren't that, even though that's what you want. And that's okay. What you need to do is attract that partner who loves you deeply enough and share with them, show them that the gestures that you love them enough. What will happen is they'll look at you eventually and they'll say, honey, I accept that you have a very independent emotional wavelength sometimes. I want to be close to you all the time, and you want to be close to me all the time, but we both know that you have this emotional, intense energy that causes you to want to go out and be independent by yourself and do things by yourself, and that's okay. I will give you that because you give me what I need, and I love you. And this is where ultimately it'll still be difficult for you to live in a close, intimate experience with anyone, because your moon is opposite your Venus and your moon is in Scorpio. But that doesn't mean you can't have an experience of love. The critical thing for you is to let go of your insecurity. Stop the thing in your brain that says, I've never been somebody who's worthy of being loved by anybody, and I know that this is happening again. The things will happen in your brain, but ultimately, what you are and what happens in your brain is not as relevant in a relationship as what you do, as the love that you show, as how you come through. This is why Venus and the moon rule the Svadhisthana chakra, which is your thing. But Saturn, the actions that we actually bond to each other through, Saturn rules air, which rules the heart chakra, at least in one dimension of Vedic astrology. Each chakra is ruled by different things in different ways. Venus actually rules the heart chakra in another way, in a different way. But in terms of the Panchatattvas, Mercury is earth, first chakra. Venus is water, second chakra. Mars is fire, third chakra. Saturn is heart, fourth chakra. Feel free to ask me in the comments more about this, and I could kind of rap with you a little bit more. I get this from Ernst Wilhelm. He has a book on the Graha Sutras that I highly recommend. So, living with you can be extremely difficult. When the possessiveness of Taurus is provoked by the inherent jealousy and insecurity of Scorpio, you can have suspicions and angry accusations that can drive even the most understanding partner straight up a wall. And it's like there's an expectation of perfect soul harmony that it's because the moon in Scorpio doesn't accept when things are difficult, but the Venus in Taurus is frustrated that things can be difficult, and you make it difficult. And you can, instead of understanding that this is kind of coming from you, it's so much internal energy, especially if you've got Pluto and Scorpio with the moon there, just by the way. This whole energy gets revved up, and it's so much for you that you sometimes might accuse the other person of doing this and that or something that's causing the frustration, when really it's you that's causing the frustration. Not always, but this is definitely an energy that can happen. However, once your passions are let loose, and once you work out everything that we've just described, your hearty sexual appetite and incredible physical stamina keep your lover satisfied and by your side throughout the night. And this is at least one thing that's for sure, is that Moon in Scorpio can perform sexually, can even be a Kama Sutra oriented, kinky person who loves to deliciously delve into sexual pleasures for its own sake. And the earthy Venus in Taurus is also tuned that way, but also likes to share it with the other person. And this can be a doorway to bonding with the soul that can help instigate invigorization and to promote sharing of water and of energy. So one thing you really don't want to do is get caught up with the wrong soul and then try to instigate deeper soul bonding through the Venus in Taurus, but not actually love the person. What happens is that you'll get very familiar and close to the sexual energization of that energy with that person, and you will likely be wrapped up with a soul that you don't actually want to be with. It can be a difficult thing to deal with, especially if you're the type of person with this combination who wants to be with someone, Venus and Taurus, but ultimately feels like you can't get who is really worthy of you, Moon in Scorpio. So you'll just say, well, this is probably the best I'm going to get, so I'm just going to deal with it, and at least we have good sex. For now. Something to think about. If you're performing even a little bit now in that sort of consciousness, that performance is going to get tougher and tougher the more familiar this bond gets. Especially because ultimately the moon in all of us wants to adapt, wants to move, wants to shuck and change. And if you have to secure this thing in this way, especially with sexual energy, which is what we're born through, we are our procreative sexual energy. If you're surrendering that just to keep a familiar bond that you don't actually feel is compelling to the soul, both of you are going to start to feel stagnant, and that person's going to start to feel like, I want to move, like I don't want to do the same thing in the way that we have. And that is going to frustrate you, even though it's what you need. And that can be a difficult thing to deal with. If you find yourself in that situation, I suggest you do move it, shake the energy up. But again, ultimately, if this is a person who you do want to be with, then do everything that I told you. Open up your heart and start thinking about the soul qualities in this person that would allow you to accept being with them for a longer period of time in a meaningful way, a more meaningful way than just ephemeral, comfortable pleasures. If you can't do it with that person, then that person might not be the right person for you. If you can't ultimately work this out, I recommend you get a therapist for yourself and for the relationship. Because I, as an astrologer, am not going to be able to fix all your problems just with this one video of one aspect. Your whole chart counts. And even if your whole chart still conveys difficulty here, you got to go beyond astrology and get a relationship counselor or just a therapist for yourself. You might be somebody who is well served to do that regardless. It doesn't need to be couples counseling. Just get a counselor so you can convey to them all your thoughts of what you want but what you don't have, and the difficulty and the truth of the good things, and is it worth holding on to these good things with all this bad? Get a therapist for yourself, especially if your moon is close to the new moon, if it's waning, and if it is with Saturn in the same sign as Saturn. If it's with Pluto, you might want to do this, or any of the other outer planets energizing it too much. Or if you have, or if the moon has Il Shad Bala, if it's close to the 10th house cusp and not the 4th house cusp, you should go to a therapist and work out what's going on there. But if your moon has enough support, if Venus has enough support, or if you can internally meditate and work out these complications yourself, you might not need the therapist. In this combination, it might still be good for you either way. Feel it out. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm Dustin Cormier for How to Rock Astrology. Let me know in the comments what you thought about it. And I hope to see you guys again. Take care.